Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
How you doing?
Oh, not so good. I'm sick. I'm on the road. I'm underprepared. But, I'm a pro.
You are.
Let's go on.
You are. That won't stop you from doing a boring Logging Heads episode.
It might be more exciting if I don't know.
Well, listen, I've got some good news for you, Mickey. Maybe this will cheer you up. In today's business page in the New York Times, there's this headline, Talent Agency is aiming to find web video stars, right?
Hey.
You-hoo, we're over here, you know. I mean, I would imagine it's not going to be long before the old phone is ringing.
No, there are probably a bunch of messages for me already. Was this...
Yeah, I would check your machine. Because it's the United Talent Agency, and it says best known as the home of comedians like Vince Vaughn and Jack Black. It's going to be cool to be their stablemates, eh, Mickey?
Oh, these are talent agents. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to be coming after us, is what I'm saying.
You got to give them a percentage.
Well, what's 15% of zero, Mickey?
Yeah, okay, well, I guess that's right.
I'm not too worried about that. Okay, well, we've got a week of redesign under our belt. Some reviews have come in.
I think Vince Vaughn's career is over. A week of redesign?
Yeah, you know, this is an embarrassing admission. I still don't even know who Vince Vaughn is. I mean, I keep seeing his name, like on the cover of magazines.
The Wedding Crashers, Swingers. You see any of those?
Nah, sorry.
Okay.
Jack Black, I'm a big fan of. Anyway, so yeah, redesign. Some people have complained. The chief complaint about the new design seems to be that it's not the old design.
Well, that's always true.
Yeah, I know. But actually, even beyond that, there is remarkable unity as to what the specific chief complaint is. But
green.
I promise this. I promise this. At the end of this show,
right,
I'm going to give out a secret code that I guarantee will quash and quell and squelch and so on all complaints. This will satisfy everyone who has a complaint about the redesign. It's a secret code.
Jesus.
And I'm not kidding.
It makes serotonin, like, pop out of your computer?
Yeah, it makes serotonin seem like aspirin, buddy.
Okay, well, I look forward to that. So that means people should really stick around to the end, or maybe jump right to the end and skip over the middle part.
Yeah. So the drama's building already. What are we going to talk about?
If you're watching this Thursday, today's the day Bush is supposed to sign the Secure Fence Act.
And you've heard of that act, haven't you, Mickey? Don't you have more than a passing interest in this issue?
I've heard of that act since you sent me on the course, and it's weird that there was this tussle as to whether he should have a public ceremony or a private ceremony.
Yeah, why was he inclined not to make a big deal of it?
I assume that there are four reasons. One, he hates the bill. He doesn't like the fence. He doesn't want to build it. And the more public the ceremony, the more he's trapped in a building.
Well, I like that instinct.
But the fence is your idea, Bob.
No, the fence isn't my idea. We can get into that, but still, even if you think the fence is a necessary thing to do, I like the initial revulsion at the idea. I think that is a virtuous response.
Well, but he's had a few years to get over that revulsion. The second thing is he thinks that if you make it look like something's been done on immigration, that then it'll be harder to pass his broader reform next year, which is, of course, true. The third thing is he doesn't want to offend the Mexican government, which is not scared that the fence won't work, it's scared that the fence will work. And the fourth thing is he has this idea that he can capture the Latino vote for generations to come if they only pass his larger bill, and he thinks that if he makes a big deal of the fence, he'll alienate the Latino vote, I suspect. All of this is just testimony to his inability to give a good speech. I mean, Clinton could sign the bill and then say, as he did with welfare, and say, this is only part of my larger agenda, and, you know, he managed to sign welfare reform without alienating the people who would ordinarily be alienated by welfare reform. So why is Bush so inarticulate that he can't say, look, I signed this fence bill because we need a secure border, but I also favor lots of immigrants and guest workers and my larger plan. And
what is the larger plan? Amnesty?
The larger plan is a guest worker program, but the trick, of course, is that existing illegals who are already in the country can apply for this guest worker program. So it and they can earn legalization, and in a number of years. So it is sort of a semi-amnesty plan. I mean, the last amnesty, which people called amnesty, wasn't a carte blanche, no questions asked amnesty. You had to earn that too. So this is almost as much of an amnesty as that one.
Well, I would say, just by way of clarification, first of all, I don't like the idea of a whole fence. I mean, however crazy this sounds, if for symbolic reasons only, I would like, in the end, less than a complete fence and part of it just to be intensively patrolled. Secondly, I only embrace the fence as part of a larger program that does include a path to legalization for the people who are already here. So it would have to be a pretty ironclad guarantee he gave that would make me really happy about this.
A couple of points. First, of course there are going to be holes in the fence. There's going to be the NAFTA superhighway running right through the middle of it. It's not going to be like we're sealing off America like North Korea. There's going to be vibrant trade in people and goods.
No, I don't just mean a way to get across. I mean, there's something creepy about the symbolism of a fence whose only exceptions are like, 5 highways. But
and the other exceptions, this is classic Bob. You prefer fakery. You want there to be symbolic holes in the fence that are then intensely patrolled so they're not real holes, but they look like holes.
Just the way I was going to put it. Fakery is what I'm for.
As usual.
Yeah. Also, I've got to think, look, it's doable if 2/3 of the terrain is covered by fence and the other third is intensively patrolled. I also don't, especially, your supposed reservation about the complete package is, well, if you tell them that there's going to be anything like amnesty down the road, then while they're building the fence, billions of Mexicans will pour in or something. And, I just think they're coming about as fast as they can already, A, and B, we have the resources, if we really want to considerably step up the patrolling of the border during the period when we're securing the border in a more systematic way.
But not all illegal aliens come over the fence. I mean, about half overstay their visas. So if amnesty attracts people, the fence isn't going to block them all. There are ways to get into the country that don't involve crossing the border. So,
but that's a problem with any scenario, right? That's a problem with the fence.
Well, no, the fence is half the solution. But you also want to reduce the incentive to come to this country illegally, and the way you reduce that is by saying we mean business, no more amnesties, and you demonstrate that before you then de facto grandfather in the people who are already here. I agree that they're not going to be deported, but and my plan depends a bit on fakery too, which is we want to convince Latin America and the rest of the world we mean business before we are secretly generous to those people who are here. But I just don't think you want to do it on one fell swoop. You don't want to send a conflicting message. We're establishing this border, but probably if you get across the border, we're never going to ship you back.
Well, anyway, we reached our views from opposite ends. I mean, I started out thinking, how can you guide the people already here toward legalization, which I think they deserve, without, intensifying the incentive effect and creating like a volume of immigration that we really can't handle, and that's where securing the border comes in. I think you started at the other end, secure the border, right? That was your priority number one.
My perspective has always been there's nothing wrong with letting the 12 million to 14 million illegals here who are here stay here. The problem is that if we do that, we'll encourage another 12 and 14 million and another one after that, and at some point it becomes a real problem. And that's exactly the consequence down the road that Bush hasn't thought of, much the way he didn't think of the consequences down the road in Iraq. There are similarly hazy, ill-thought-out schemes. So the obvious answer is that you send the signal, we mean business, the border's closed, you have to come here legally, and you set up legal programs, and then worry about the people who are here down the road. They're here, they're doing fine, they're living in the shadows, they can live in the shadows for another 5 years.
I don't actually feel that way. I think they deserve better, but anyway.
The other point is, in Europe, where there have been successive amnesties, they've discovered that only encourages illegal immigration, and Mr. Sarkozy, the controversial minister in France, has called on Spain and other European countries to stop granting so many amnesties because it only encourages more immigration. So there's some evidence that amnesties do have this bad effect.
Do you think you would be less obsessed with the... I realize that's a loaded word, but anybody reading your blog would grope for a word somewhere in that neighborhood. Obsessed with the immigration issue if you didn't live in Southern California? Like when you're traveling on the road, do you like kind of lighten up about it?
No. If you live in Southern California, people expect you to have a view. So it's sort of an issue you have to confront. And you do feel the problem of Mexico being right next door more strongly. In other words, Schwarzenegger gave a speech where he said, it's harder for Mexicans to be American citizens because they can always go back home to Mexico. And in fact, the official position of the Mexican government is that there's this circular migration where they do go back home to Mexico. Well, that's a problem that Italian immigrants and Schwarzenegger-type immigrants from Europe and Austria and people from Korea don't have. They don't have their home country right next door. And it seems to be that problem you feel more intensely in California. The problem of illegal immigrants and legal immigrants undercutting the wages for the poorest American citizens and non-immigrants, you feel all over the country. I mean, there's cheap immigrant labor everywhere now.
I will graciously give you the last word on this issue, Mickey. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So, on to what? Barak?
Yeah, Obama is the. I was just at visiting my friends at the news weeklies, and then that class of people is now completely obsessed with Obama.
Well, that's a bad sign, right?
Why is it a bad sign? They should be obsessed with the fence.
Oh.
No, why is it a bad sign?
Bad sign for Obama, I mean. The wave is sure to crash shortly.
Well, he is cruising for a bruising in that respect. I agree.
I foresee trouble.
But apparently he's really serious about it.
Yeah, it must be.
Supposedly, people who talk to him say it's not just to promote his book. Second, the Hillary people are terrified, and John Alter explained in Newsweek's blog, which I can't believe is widely read yet, just why Obama is such a threat to Hillary.
And why is it?
It's because Hillary assumes she's going to lose Iowa, because Edwards is camped out there, and Iowa's pretty left-wing.
But she thinks she has a firewall.
She has a firewall in the South. She might even lose New Hampshire, okay? But she thinks she has a firewall in the South in Super Tuesday because she thinks she can get the black vote. But if Obama's in the race, she's not going to get the black vote. So there goes her firewall, and her whole strategy for winning the nomination goes out the window. So Alter not only says that Obama is this mortal threat to Hillary, he also says that Hillary's people recognize it, and they're itching to jump to Obama. I did talk with some Democratic... That Hillary's people sort of see the writing on the wall, and some of Hillary's supporters, not her inner circle, obviously, but people who are supporting Hillary are ready to jump to Obama.
They're getting their resumes in shape? Well...
It's on resumes. They're getting out their checkbooks, I think, mostly. But
I see.
And
contributors.
And also resume people. But the other thing is, Hillary made waffle. I mean, she has this standing offer from Senator Harry Reid to become majority leader of the U.S. Senate. She'd be very good at that. Mm-hmm. She always supposedly had cold feet, and Bill was the one pushing it, and apparently Bill now has cold feet. So
who told you that?
Colder feet. I can't reveal my sources. But anyway,
Mickey.
And who knows? They may be bad sources. But
why did they say why he has cold feet about Hillary?
No. Not cold feet, just colder feet. Anyway, he's been the driving force, I think. And she's being naturally cautious, wants to make sure all their ducks are in a row. But anyway,
I think she's got her share of ambition.
Yeah, no, I understand. But
here's a problem.
To be majority leader of the Senate and nothing more?
What's that?
To only be majority leader of the Senate? I guess she's more ambitious than that.
Yeah, well, it would be important. First female majority leader.
Well, plus she could keep that job forever, basically. But go ahead.
Here's my I saw Obama, or actually listened to it, on Charlie Rose. I would say two things. First of all, he's got to get out of the habit of when someone's asking him a question going, yeah, right, uh-huh, kind of in a semi-impatient way, as if, would you hurry up and finish so that I can enlighten you?
Got it, yeah.
Yeah, got it. But secondly, here's the problem I foresee for him, or a problem I foresee for him. He does give he's a refreshing person to listen to, because when he starts to answer a question, he gives you the idea that this is not just another politician. This is a more straightforward, candid guy. This is not the standard canned answer. For some reason, it feels like that. But then you get to the end of the answer, and you realize he's been just as vague and evasive as any politician, right? There's no more content in the answers.
I think he admitted he tried cocaine.
He did?
Yes.
Well, he should say that every time. that would solve the problem.
So I think that's a little more specific than politicians usually get.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, kind of?
Yeah, no, I understand.
I mean, he and I was kind of getting sick of it by the end of the interview.
He's a little like Hillary in his substancelessness, except that he doesn't give the impression he's substanceless, whereas she does. In terms of what she says,
well, she just starts out like a conventional politician. I haven't put my finger on what it is about the way he answers questions that seems different from a conventional politician.
Right,
exactly.
right.
It's something in his delivery and the angle he takes into a question.
Right.
I don't think I'm just like grading him on a curve or something because he's black, which is one common claim about the positive reaction to him. I do think there's something seemingly refreshing about the way he starts answering questions, but ultimately disappointing about the answers.
I have to go read John McWhorter's hit piece on him. I assume, I don't know if it has much evidence, but it seems to me when you run for president, it's not enough to say, there's no evidence I shouldn't be president. You have to actually present some accomplishments for why you should be president.
He can bring America together, Mickey.
There's this crazy idea that Eric Alderman proposed that the Republican attack machine is so adept that the Democrats have to nominate somebody who's never done anything, because then there will be nothing for them to attack. Whereas if they've actually accomplished something or tried to accomplish something or had any experience in politics at all, that then the mighty Karl Rove machine will have something to dig its talons in. One of the good things if the Democrats lose this coming election, if the Democrats win the coming election, would be this myth of Rove's, invulnerability and omnipotence will be punctured, and maybe Democrats won't feel that they have to nominate somebody who has no record.
Well, we're approaching. You're veering toward a segue to the next topic.
I was veering toward a segue. Let's take it.
Well, wait a second, though.
Okay.
Who else is there on the presidential side for the Democrats? Al Gore has not been heard from lately, right?
That's right, and people who know and say he's not going to run, I still don't believe it.
Is that the latest word? A couple months ago, that was not the word.
Well, it's always been the word from intimates.
Yeah.
It's not been the word from the next circle out, all of which, thinks he'll come around. He doesn't know he's running yet, but he is. All of this will change if we have this thing where Obama stymies Hillary and Hillary decides she'd rather be majority leader.
What, people will rush in?
Yeah, including Gore, maybe.
I don't think he's afraid of Hillary. I think, if anything, she would be bait from his point of view.
That's a good point. But if he's offered a royal road to the nomination,
I don't think he's ever going to be offered that. But anyway, who else is there besides him? Evan Bayh?
Well, we're back to the whole usual thing where I always end up saying I like Ed Rendell, and then I get massive emails that I haven't read on why Ed Rendell is not what he seems.
Well,
but
you should read them, and then we'll talk about it again sometime.
He certainly gives you the impression that he's candid and says things, because he often actually puts his foot in his mouth, unlike Obama.
And he taught at Penn. He taught at an Ivy League university. He must be smart.
No, I think he's smart. The argument is that he started off taking on the unions, and then he's reached an accommodation with them and gone soft. But at this point, I sort of don't even care if I want some accomplishments, and he has some accomplishments, but I sort of don't care if the person was the most dynamic mayor of a town. He got reelected. He was popular. He's candid. If he's electable, what the hell? But I just contradicted myself.
It sounded vaguely like that to me.
Yeah.
It's certainly a segue time, I would say.
Yes.
So elections, midterms. Now, as of the weekend, the conventional wisdom on the talk shows was, wow, the momentum's really on the side of the Democrats. The only question is whether they win both houses or just the lower house. My feeling is, whatever's left, like 12 days is an eternity these days, and the only question is whether the conventional wisdom is going to shift an odd number of times or an even number of times.
No, that's basically my perspective. I mean, Mark Foley, there was something I remember
exactly
about him, but I sort of don't know the details and what was all that fuss about.
Exactly. Although, I mean, maybe it took its toll and left its mark. That can happen. But,
Well, you know, John Podhoretz has a very smart column about people who think in blog time and people who think in mainstream media time. And his point was the mainstream media thinks that there's this huge Democratic wave coming. The blogs are already seeing, well, no, the Republicans are clawing back in some places. Burns in Montana is coming back, and you know, Harold Ford isn't doesn't seem to be on track to victory the way he did about a week ago. The Foley scale is fading. You know, and Bush has some issues that he can draw on. One of his, the Democrats got a huge break today when the New Jersey Supreme Court, and we're taping this on Wednesday, did not require gay marriage in New Jersey. That would have been a big national issue.
Wait, did they issue the decision, or they just are not?
They have issued the decision.
They have?
Yes, about like a few minutes ago. And
so that's good for the Democrats.
It's good for the Democrats. They said they said gays
Bad
have
for monogamous gay couples in New Jersey. Good for the Democrats.
They said gays. No, they said gays have to have equal rights, but they left it to the legislature whether that's some sort of civil union or actual marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And in the New Jersey thing would have been awful for the Democrats because unlike Massachusetts, couples could have come there from all over the nation to marry. So it would have set up this huge wave of nothing but gay couples boarding buses and trains and planes to go to New Jersey for the next 2 weeks. So it would have been bad. They dodged the bullet there.
Eric Alterman has a blog item, I think, predicting Republican victory even in the lower house and pointing to some Barron's analysis that...
Well, the Barron's analysis is junk. It's all based on campaign funding as opposed to actual voting.
Okay. Well, he's not quite predicting it, but he's...
Alterman's generally pessimistic, and he could be right. Michael Barone had an analysis. He's a pretty level-headed guy. He's a right-winger, but he's very, very astute politically. And he said he thought the Democrats have a minimum of 15 and probably not as many as 22, a gain of 22.
15 is what they need, right?
Right, 15, 16. He had them winning the House, but not by a huge margin. And not, interestingly, not by a large enough margin that the Republicans couldn't try to lure a couple people over from the other side and maintain their control.
Speaking of luring, now Lieberman is going to win for sure in Connecticut, and
not for sure.
Just about for sure.
Yeah, but the Republican candidate, the last report I said, was gaining quite rapidly, and those votes are all coming from Lieberman.
But Lieberman, I mean, back to the luring across party lines thing, he would caucus with the Democrats, which means he's as good as a Democrat?
Most people feel that, yes, he's as good as a Democrat, at least at the start.
At least at the start.
He's not about to be responsible for the Republican.
Although it remains true that he is, as the blogger Digby put it, a warmongering Bush enabler. And I distance myself from him.
That's good that you distance. Everything's appearance with you, Bob.
It's all about, that's right. It's worked so far, man.
The other issue the Republicans have is Alcee Hastings. If you read way in the back of the New York Times, Nancy Pelosi has pretty much indicated that she's not going to reappoint Jane Harman as head of the Intelligence Committee. I used to work for Jane Harman. I like Jane Harman. That apparently puts me in a small minority of Democrats. A lot of people don't like her. I don't quite know why. I think she's too independent and too insufficiently anti-Bush. But anyway, so that means the front runner for the intelligence seat is Alcee Hastings, a congressman from Florida, who, as a federal judge, was impeached and convicted in the Senate for bribery and removed from the bench. And is that the guy the Democrats want heading the Intelligence Committee? Why can't Republicans make a huge issue of that in the final couple of
Now,
weeks?
Mickey, this is an interesting point you raised, because I noticed that in your blog you write this very item. And it takes us back. I mean, are you claiming you want the Democrats to win this election?
I don't know if I want the Democrats to win
I don't know if you do either, buddy. But why don't you clue us in? What is your official position? Do you or don't you?
I'd rather them they took the Senate than the House, because I'm worried that if they take the House, that then they'll pass Bush's misguided Iraq war-like, unthought-out immigration plan.
Jeez, is that thinking several shots ahead?
It's not taking several shots ahead. It's thinking, what's the one issue where the liberal Democrats agree with Bush on? It's the one big issue is immigration. Everything else is going to be a stalemate.
I mean, isn't the big immigration bill fence plus stuff I would like?
Well, the fence is done. It's going to be, you know...
Well, I thought you embraced this solution of fence plus the nice stuff.
I take the Harold Ford position, which is you do the fence and some other immigration enforcement measures, like interior enforcement against new employees, not old employees.
Oh, so it's all sticking.
And then in 4 or 5 years, we reassess and see if that works. Then we can afford to be generous. If it doesn't work, we can't afford to be generous.
So it's been a total bait and switch with you. But let's not get back to immigration.
No, that's been my consistent position all along.
I want to focus on the fact that you just are not at heart a Democrat or a liberal. I mean, the way, the distinction between someone who is fundamentally a Democrat in their sympathies and somebody who's fundamentally Republican is like, what kinds of campaign ads do they dream up, right? Do you? I spend my time, like, I read the news and I think, why don't the Democrats do this great campaign ad attacking the Republicans on this? And this blog item of yours demonstrates that once again, your instinct is, here's a quote from it. How hard is that ad for the GOP to whip up?
Well, but that's the obvious story to write. I mean, everybody says...
It's always that for you, Mickey. Go back. I wish I had the funding to do a study of ads you have advocated and sound bites you have advocated and, creative approaches to spin you've advocated. 85% of the time you've got the Republican point of view in mind, and that's what you're trying to sell.
I've been much better behaved recently, Bob.
Well, only because I lecture you every week.
No. But
I mean, what happens if I go away? This is the only reason I keep doing this, Mickey, is to try to keep you in line.
There's always Kevin Drum, Bob.
God bless you, Kevin Drum.
No one's indispensable.
God bless you. What? I don't know.
In the blogosphere...
The guy who owns the cameras comes pretty close.
In the blogosphere, nobody's indispensable. It's not an expensive camera.
Well, on this election issue, a few interesting little tidbits.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, it really was, a poor choice of words by that Republican candidate who said about his opponent, Tammy Duckworth, that she favors a cut-and-run policy in Iraq, given the fact that serving her country in Iraq, she lost her legs, right? He could have chosen a different phrase.
I could think of some worse phrases, but...
Yeah, but that's exactly what I mean, Mickey.
It's sort of hard...
Exactly what I'm saying. I'm sure you could and did.
It's sort of hard to... it's like double entendres. You sort of... When you're trying to avoid them, you automatically lapse into them.
And then there's a question of whether Rush Limbaugh is back on the OxyContin, right? I mean, how else do you explain... Did you know the Michael Fox thing where Rush Limbaugh said, Michael Fox does this ad...
I had this debate with somebody last night.
Well, let me fill in the background in case anybody missed it. Michael Fox has this ad for candidates who, or at least one, maybe more, who support funding for stem cell research. He comes on, he is clearly a person... with something wrong. It's actually not classic Parkinson's symptoms. He's kind of like moving around kind of wildly, which is apparently more likely due to over-medication for Parkinson's than from Parkinson's itself. But anyway.
I think it's just a side product of the medication.
So Limbaugh says he's moving, he sees the ad and says he's moving all around and shaking, and it's purely an act. This is really shameless of Michael J. Fox. And he predictably got in trouble and came about as close as Rush Limbaugh ever comes to apologizing.
Right. I haven't seen the ad. It's a thought I had.
Even without seeing the ad? I mean,
well, sure. It's a thought I read a description of the ad.
Well, I'll tell you
it's a thought you had that he wasn't unhappy that he showed these horrible symptoms, and then I would never publish that or write that, and he's an honorable person, and he's in a bad situation there.
Well, I've seen the ad, and we can link to it if I can find it. But and actually, if you look at it, he's clearly moving more dramatically than he has in the past. I've always thought he tends to over-medicate because he often is doing this kind of fidgety thing that is the result of over-medication. But
I don't think it's over-medication, Bob. I think when you have...
No. When you have Parkinson's, you don't move. This has come through in the blog commentary. Doctors have written in saying that when you see them moving around, it's not Parkinson's.
Right, but it's not over-medication. It's the medication you take so that you can move.
Well, okay, but it
has these side effects.
But it's a result. Okay, maybe you're putting it the right way. But anyway, I mean, I looked at the video and I thought, yeah, that does look more dramatic than in the past. On the other hand, so he could be exaggerating it a little for effect. I don't know. On the other hand, A, it's been a long time since I had seen him in public, and maybe things have gotten worse. B, my main point is, whatever you think of the ad, if you're Rush Limbaugh and you're not on drugs, right, you know enough not to say something that's stupid, right? Don't you?
Right. One could say that it's a sign of desperation that they're looking for any old issue.
I'd rather start the OxyContin rumor, Mickey, if it's okay with you.
And Limbaugh may also be trying to play an Ann Coulter role here, which is you say something that is roundly denounced, but yet it has the effect of destroying the intended target. The way she did with the Jersey Girls. I think the Jersey Girls are tarnished now, even though everybody condemns Ann Coulter for saying that they're witches. People are going to think twice before citing them as this great authority.
You clearly pay more attention to the bodies that lie in Ann Coulter's wake than I do. I don't know the details of the case, but
well, no, she has said that that's what she achieved, and the more I thought about it, the more that sort of works. And there are these people that come from the extremes who are never going to get elected to anything, but who make points and sort of take out their target while doing damage to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But Limbaugh's an unlikely guy for that. So I just think it was a thought that everybody has looking at that ad, and it's a thought that one quickly suppresses because his symptoms are bound to get worse.
Right, but it's in that sense like whatever racial remark, I forget, that Limbaugh made some time ago on, I think, ESPN, when he said something like, well, some quarterback is overrated because he's black. That was a thought that a lot of sports fans had. But they weren't on drugs, so they didn't say it on TV. It turns out he was on drugs at that time. That's what I'm saying. This is like that.
So you're saying that Rush Limbaugh should avoid irresponsible charges, but you're accusing him of being on drugs?
Yes. I'm accusing him of being on drugs.
Okay.
And I defy him to come to Blogging Heads TV and debate me on the issue of whether he's on drugs.
I'm on drugs now, Bob. I'm on Sudafed.
You're on coffee, too.
And coffee. So
Sudafed's better than coffee.
Sudafed is great stuff. That's why you have to give your driver's license out.
Yeah, I look forward to getting colds myself.
The other crazy election idea, the interesting election idea, is this idea on the note that the mainstream media is biased against Bush, and they're putting out all these anti-Bush stories which will perversely help Bush.
And what are these stories?
Well, that Iraq is in trouble, Bush is desperate, all the Democrats are riding a wave to victory. All of the standard pro-Bush stories, backbiting in the Republicans, pessimistic Republican consultants say all is lost, blah, blah, blah. Racist Republicans running ads against Harold Ford. That all these things somehow in a jiu-jitsu, the Republicans are so good at turning hatred of the mainstream media into mobilizing their base, that perversely the more anti-Bush the mainstream media are, the more that helps the Republicans. So if really the mainstream media wanted to hurt Bush, it would be nice to Bush, which would completely flummox the right wing. I just don't buy this whole theory. It seems to me that if Time and the network news run anti-Bush stories, that on balance that still hurts Bush.
Well, they could get egregious enough that they would help whip up the base, I guess. I mean, what worries me is just that the whole conventional wisdom is peaking way too soon, for my money.
It's peaking repeatedly. Dick Morris has already flip-flopped from saying the Democrats are going to win in a huge wave because Foley has destroyed the Republican base, to saying, wait a minute, the Republicans might win after all, in the space of like a week.
Yeah. No, a lot of things could happen between now and then, for one thing. I mean, look, there could be conceivably a terrorist attack, but various things could happen on the foreign policy front. If North Korea comes out and says, yes, we've agreed with China that X, Y, and Z, then Bush will look a little less dopey on that front. I mean, a lot of little things could happen.
That's actually Dick Morris's latest column, which I haven't read, which is Bush's winning issue is North Korea.
I wouldn't call it that yet, but...
I have a segue coming.
Wait, I have a segue coming.
Okay,
so you're doing segues?
Go ahead.
Mine is a segue only to foreign policy generally.
Okay.
And yours is probably more specific.
I have a much better segue than that.
Okay. I concede in advance. I just wanted to say, on the previous issue of Blogging Heads, Matt Iglesias said that maybe Democrats coming into power in the House could lead Bush to get more aggressive on the foreign front and invade some country as a way of kind of changing the subject or something. And I would just like to bring a message of hope, Mickey, that another thing that could happen in the last 2 years of Bush's presidency, there's a couple of ways he could go. He could go the, bomb Iran because it's the right thing to do, I'm increasingly, rejected as president, but damn it, I'm going to go out doing the right thing. There's that impulse. There's also the classic legacy impulse, and maybe that's a version of the legacy impulse, but of course, the most hallowed version of the legacy impulse in recent presidential history is I'm going to solve the Israel problem. It's a natural thing for Bush to want to do because it's one of the few things that was supposed to come out of the Iraq misadventure that is conceivably achievable. So
the guy who was supposed to push that, Wolfowitz, is gone now.
Well, he's gone, but I'm talking about it having a totally different origin now. And Condi Rice is not a terrible person to have as Secretary of State if you're going to do that. I mean, one reason I think that even that impulse would probably come to nothing is that I don't think Bush has the moral imagination to put himself in the shoes of the Palestinians, which you just have to do to sponsor effective negotiations. Rice, I think the fact that she's black helps. The fact that she's lived in America as a black person will probably help her identify with the condition of the Palestinians.
Bush has been a rich WASP rich conservative WASP at elite liberal Yale University. He knows what it's like to be discriminated against.
Well, the irony is that he thinks he does, right? It's an interesting question. Why has that guy hung on to a Southern accent, right? He headed east when he was about 14. I left Texas later than that, and I've lost mine. And maybe I'm more of a chameleon, but I also think he immediately...
Then he went back to Texas.
What's that?
Then he went back to Texas.
Oh, yeah, but wait. Then he went to, prep school in the East, Yale, and he's got a thick and deep accent. And anyway, my armchair theory is he sees himself as he has cast himself as a persecuted minority among Eastern elites ever since he went to the East. He's the underappreciated good old boy, and so he's retreated into that identity because he knows he's not as smart as other people at Yale, and so to kind of he searched for his self-esteem back in in this idea that but he's got common sense and he's a real American and blah blah blah. So the truth is, I think a lot of the psychology of Bush, including a lot that's done a lot of damage, comes out of a kind of resentment against what he sees as an elite that is opposed to him. How's that?
I'm not going to argue with that. But it does seem to me that he has, once these midterms are passed, he doesn't have all that much reason to want to distract people from...
well, that's Matt's theory, not mine.
Yeah, he said, he doesn't have to face any more elections after this. It's a question of setting up a successor who won't do in Iraq what he doesn't want done.
No, but the legacy impulse, which thing are you talking about? The warmongering impulse or the legacy impulse?
Well, you said he was going to... You speculated that he might start a war...
No, I said Matt speculated that in the last Blogging Heads.
Right, okay.
Which you would know about if you were a faithful viewer, Mickey.
No, obviously he's a big legacy man, and that's scary because most... on immigration...
They're all big legacy men.
Not to bring up immigration. On immigration, the legacy he wants is not a good legacy.
Would you leave immigration alone, Mickey? It's like a sore. Would you quit picking it?
The amazing thing about the Bush presidency is all the ideas he pursued, including toppling Saddam Hussein, are ideas he had before he took office. He, almost unprecedented in the annals of the White House, he hasn't had any new ideas since he was first sworn in.
Actually, he has. He was talking like a foreign policy realist when he was sworn in. He was saying, we're not going to have troops escorting kindergartners to school. And actually, if we had enough troops in Iraq, they'd be doing that, because the kindergartners are getting killed.
David Frum said that when he showed up at the White House in the first month or two of the administration, Bush said, we're going to take out Saddam. So, if nation building was what you had to do to take out Saddam, then he's for nation building.
Turns out a little nation building is in order after you do it. Now there's a segue right there, but you have a different one?
No, that's a perfectly good segue. What people don't understand is why he brought up Iraq, given that Iraq is the source.
This is in his press conference today.
And I guess the answer is that if it's the source point, you try to make it less sore. And I always expected him to use the Baker Commission and the possibility of a big change. If he's smart, he would use that to reduce hostility. Say, "Oh, Bush, he's on top of it. There's going to be a big change when the Baker Commission comes and gives their results. They're going to figure it all out, and we're going to figure out how to get out of Iraq."
Yeah, but see, one thing that had happened beginning last weekend, I think, is that the whole Baker Commission thing accidentally. He had been led by that into making Iraq a more problematic issue with that whole controversy over whether he was going to stay the course or not. I mean, George Stephanopoulos asked him. James Baker says that Stephanopoulos says, James Baker says that he's looking for something between cut and run and stay the course. Bush replied, well, hey, listen, we've never been stay the course. And then I think that's the origin of this weird administration line that, there was apparently...
But you think that hurts him? It helps him.
Well, there was this big controversy because then Tony Snow comes out and says, yeah, Tony Snow came out after this and, people immediately said, wait a second, you're saying we've never been stay the course? You've definitely said let's stay the course. So Tony Snow comes out and says, we've searched the records. Bush has only said that 8 times. Well, first of all, 8 is more than 0 by most reckonings, so that would still be a change. Of course, secondly, the ever-nimble blog Think Progress actually did a count. It turns out Bush has said something like 30 times. So that turned into this little, mini tempest.
Well, so he loses the blog vote, the Think Progress vote, Bob, which he doesn't have anyway, but he spreads the larger idea that he's not going to stay the course in Iraq, which is what the voters want to hear, and that helps them.
Well, yeah, but there are ways of saying that without claiming idiotically that you had never said stay the course in the first place, when in fact you had said it roughly every day.
He's happy to look idiotic all the way to the polls, Bob. If you want to make this an issue for the next 2 weeks of why is Bush shifting on Iraq, that's a great thing for Bush.
No, Mickey, you don't understand me. I'm saying it's possible to do what you're saying he should have done without making the idiotic claim that he had never said stay the course. Obviously he had said it. The thing to say is to come out and say he's clarifying it. That when he said stay the course all this time, he hasn't meant X, Y, and Z. He's just meant A, B, and C. That's what he should have said. It's stupid to claim he's never said something he says all the time.
He said that all the time. He always says stay the course means the goal is the same and the tactics and strategies change, and that didn't wash it. That didn't get the message across. So he had to come out and claim he's never said something that he says all the time.
I don't think that helped him, personally.
I think it definitely helped him. It would have been more manly to say, I used to say stay the course. That was the wrong thing to say. And he said that for a couple of things. But on Iraq, that would be that was a bridge too far, I think, for him.
I don't think he had to say that. He said, I think all he had to say was, by stay the course, all I mean is that we're committed to a good outcome. That's all he had to say.
Yeah, he said that before. It wasn't dramatic.
Well, I don't think this little thing. I just think it made him look ridiculous. But anyway, I think the press conference was partly in response to that. He wanted to kind of clear the air on that.
It's possible. I guess I think it was more a prick the boil press conference. For 2 weeks, if you can get the American voter thinking for 2 more weeks that there's some hope in Iraq, that's a big boost for the Republicans, and I think that's what the goal was. It's weird what's happening in Iraq. We had a raid today on some of Sadr's people, and Maliki denounced us. That reeks of kabuki to me. It reeks to me of, Maliki knew we were going to attack Sadr's people, and he has to pretend that he didn't know in protest, and that's how he retains his credibility. But in fact, that's not a bad way to attack Sadr's people if we, without authority go around attacking them.
Yeah, but half the time we wind up releasing them at Maliki's behest, I think. That doesn't seem to me like very effective kabuki. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I guess it's not impossible that there's coordination, but...
The interesting development, which I haven't followed in depth, is the right wing abandoning Maliki. Charles Krauthammer said he's failed Fred Barnes said he's failed.
Well, and it just makes me sick when I hear people, often anonymous people in the Bush administration, complain that Maliki hasn't shown the will to confront the various people he has to confront. I mean, George Bush doesn't have the courage to, like, advocate a gas tax, you know, and we're complaining that this guy, whom we have created a nearly impossible situation from, and who, like, among the bad consequences for him could be, like, death for him and his family. We're complaining that he doesn't have the will, but you hear these anonymous quotes all the time coming out of the administration. And
I don't even think it's a question of will. He doesn't have the troops.
No, yeah, well, now you're getting to the truth. He is in a nearly hopeless situation.
If there were a war between the Iraqi army and the Mahdi army, who do we think would win?
Well, the thing is, it's worse than that. I mean, last week there was a war between the Mahdi army and the Badr brigade, okay? I mean, it's getting hard to count the various different factions that there would be in a full-blown civil war. I mean, this is two Shiite militias who really, you know, came to blows in an organized way, I think, more than has happened before. It seemed like a contest for this one pretty big city of a few 100,000 people, and at one point, you know, the al-Sadr's people, the Mahdi army, had taken out or taken a few police stations. I mean, it was actual work there. And then when it was quelled, it wasn't that the Iraqi troops came in and overcame anybody. It was that the Iraqi government stepped in and kind of like mediated.
Why is that such a bad thing? It's not like they were killing civilians; they were shooting each other. So what? It's what doesn't want warfare anywhere in the world. But if two armies that are troublemakers shoot each other up and don't kill members of another ethnic group in a way that is going to prompt reprisal killings the way the Sunnis and Shiites are going at each other, that seems to be a minor problem.
Oh, so you're still thinking in Bush terms where, okay, there's all these bad guys, and every time one dies, it's good news, because eventually that'll mean they're all dead, and you give no thought to what the consequences are to the way they're dying?
I'm saying this isn't a problem like the killing of civilians and the ethnic cleansing going on in Baghdad that has large strategic ramifications.
Yeah, but Mickey, if you ask why are these militias so strong and getting stronger, the two things are intimately connected and are symbiotic. And this is one thing I figured out from some story I read a few days ago, and it's this. If you ask why are the militias growing stronger, I mean, I had not heard this, but here's the way it works. This is a part of the formula, okay? Somebody like kills your brother, okay, in one of these, you know, so-called extrajudicial killings. I mean, say you're a Shiite, some Sunni, you know, like guy comes and kills your brother. Now, in America, you would count on the central government to provide justice. Well, that's not going to happen in Iraq because there's no real centralized authority.
Right.
The most justice you can hope for is a reprisal killing. Well, who's going to do that for you? The militia does it for you,
sure, of course,
right?
that's what's going on.
And so what happens is when you hear about all these people are dying, and they're now dying in Baghdad alone at a rate of nearly 3,000 a month. That's 9/11 a month in this one city. So for all these killings, you know, when there are these killings that lead to reprisals that are executed by the militias, there's a whole family whose allegiance to this militia becomes much firmer because they were the source of the justice. Okay, so the ethnic killings consolidate and expand the influence of the militias, which use that influence to conduct more sectarian killings. Okay, so that's the problem.
Right, but this was going on in an area where I don't think there were a whole lot of Sunnis. This was a power struggle within the Shiite area that would have happened anyway in the aftermath of the war, whether there were reprisal killings or not.
It would have happened anyway? Intra-Shiite?
The Badr Brigade and the Mahdi Army don't like each other, I think.
No, they don't. It goes way back. But my point is, it seems to me that, you know, the more different, powerful, bloodthirsty factions there are in a civil war, the harder a problem it is to solve. And all I'm saying is it's not as simple as we sometimes think. You know, Kurds, Shiites, Sunnis. The two Shiite groups just about actually came to war last week.
I just you're making too big a deal of it, as did the media. It's the big deal is the ethnic cleansing in Baghdad, the fight over this town was not such a...
But what I'm saying is they're related. It's the ethnic killing is making these militias so strong that it probably is going to come to organized warfare between them.
Unless you say that because of the ethnic killing, the Mahdi army and the Badr Brigade are recruiting hundreds of new people, I don't see it. But
you don't see it.
I don't see where I see where the Mahdi army, gains authority from the inability of the government to extract justice after a killing. Yes.
So, are you still of the view that the jury's out and this war wasn't necessarily a mistake? Because everybody else, Jonah Goldberg says it's a mistake. You're like,
well, it's always been a mistake in that obviously it wasn't worth the risk of failure, which was, if the risk of failure was 40%, it probably wasn't worth the risk of failure, and the risk of failure seems like about 85 or 90% now. But it doesn't seem
you're getting there.
It doesn't seem to me that there's not this 10% chance of success.
Okay.
That's the position I've retreated to.
You bring a message of hope. What else? Anything else on Iraq?
I think that's all I had, such as it was.
Yeah. Seems like there was something else. Guess not. Oh well, the Americans say they're going to need more American troops in Baghdad. I guess is.
Well, they hinted at that and then they backed down.
Yeah. And I guess vivid characterization of the week of Iraq comes from the American Footprints blog. Makes Hieronymus Bosch look like Norman Rockwell. Maybe an exaggeration.
Sort of good blog writing. I don't mean that as a compliment.
You know a thing or two about good blog writing, Mickey.
I engage in it all the time myself, but...
you started the first blog in the world, didn't you?
No.
That's been written about you. I don't think you should deny it. You should deny it in a seemingly overly humble way, not in a convincing way.
Okay.
So, we've exhausted all topics?
I think we've exhausted the substance, yeah. How we've been going on for 15 minutes.
Been going on.
Yeah.
Let's see, a couple of letters quickly.
But you're going to give the key to the redesign.
I am going to, but I'm going to let the suspense continue for a little while.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick letters. One, remember the Brendan Loy thing, that blog item where I said, is this or is this not a logical fallacy?
Right.
Few people wrote in. Somewhere on your side they were wrong. Somewhere on my side they were right. I'll just read one of those. I won't rehash the whole thing, but this guy comes up with a good analogy. It's Matthew J. He says, the argument that Loy was making, and we'll link to it again, I guess, was equivalent to, 1, my friends come over to visit me all the time. 2, your friends hardly ever come over to visit me. 3, therefore my friends are friendlier, more outgoing than your friends. That is the logic. You've probably come to admit that I was right about that, right, Mickey?
No, you were completely wrong. I wasn't very good in making my point. My point is that 23 hits is not a lot of hits to get from the Daily Kos. Forget how many.
Mickey, it was
forget how many hits the right-wing people said. If you know anything about the blogosphere and are a blogger, 23 hits is a small number of hits.
First of all,
that's all Brendan Loy was saying.
First of all, wasn't it like 23 hits in an hour or something?
On an absolute, 23 hits in an hour is a small number of hits.
Secondly,
on an absolute scale, it is small. Forget the relative argument, which he didn't make, and you falsely impugned to him. On an absolute scale, that is pathetic.
He totally made that argument. He established the smallness. You're not doing this now, but he established the smallness by comparison with those other numbers. That's where his fallacy begins. But I would say another thing. You know that how many hits you get from a link all depends on how the link is phrased. We've gotten links from Instapundit that led to thousands and thousands. We've gotten links from Instapundit that led to like 200 total all day. Okay? It all is in the phrasing of the link.
I agree it radically changes with the phrasing.
Right. So anyway, so you agree I was right, you were wrong. Thank you. Is that?
I've got to roll my eyes in Bob Wright fashion.
Oh, you know, I got some letters complaining that I don't understand. I only do it with you. I wouldn't do it with like somebody that I liked and respected.
I'm going to try to roll my eyes.
How was it? Was it good for you?
We'll let the viewers judge.
Yeah.
I think it was very good.
Well,
I'm better at switching my nose.
Okay. Now another email comes from Mark H. Mickey, my man, I've been away for 10 days, but now the less appealing redesign doesn't permit me to scan past dialogues to catch up on any missed Mickey Bob events.
That's not true.
Well, wait a second. First, we got to get to the PS on this letter. He writes, curse you, Blogging Heads TV redesign. Now, I'll get to the redesign in a minute, but I like the PS here. He says, yes, that's right. I'm not interested in the non-Mickey Bob dialogues. In fact, my girlfriend Jennifer often looks at me at odd moments and says, hi, Mickey. And as part of the creepy ritual, I am supposed to instantly respond, hi, Bob. Now, Mickey, you know, we've been looking for ways to kind of go viral, you know, really get the Blogging Heads brand name out there.
Whatever gets you through the night, yeah.
I'm thinking like a Blogging Heads TV fetish. Maybe a line of Blogging Heads TV fetish products.
I think there already is a Blogging Heads TV fetish. I think people...
You are an optimist. That and the Iraq War is going to work out well are your two core convictions.
I think people are throwing themselves on burning pyres in the East Asia to try to attract your attention.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, on the redesign, he says, the same guy, I defy you to go to the current homepage and easily find the last Mickey Bob dialogues. Well, first of all, if you go to the new homepage and click on just about any link, you will find yourself at what we can now refer to as the video page, where videos are playing, and you'll find that it in every respect is identical to the old homepage. Okay, so first of all, everyone is one click away from everything that was on the old homepage. I mean, the old homepage has in effect been preserved as what we can now call the video page.
Okay.
But there's more than that, and here comes the secret formula.
Okay.
If people want things to be just like they were, if they want to go back in time, and I should add, actually, I mean, we're addressing the complaint per se. I mean, I do think probably the new homepage, it should have at least the convenient, efficient list somewhere of recent dialogues in chronological order. Okay, we're doing something about that. Secondly, that whole feature could stand to be upgraded to begin with. I mean, we always needed the ability to, like, say, well, show me all the dialogues, including so-and-so, right?
Right.
And the search function we have now is only a very crude version of that involving Google software. So we're going to address these complaints per se, but here's the secret formula. If you want things to be exactly like they were before the redesign, here's the URL to make your bookmark. bloggingheads.tv/video.php. That's Peter Henry Peter. That will take you always to something that looks exactly like the old homepage. You will see the latest video up there on that one screen. The topics will be splashed across our faces in a way that used to annoy people. And there you have it. But at the same time, we are working to make the new design even better.
Here's a question. Does anybody, aside from you and me, like the new redesign?
Yeah, we've gotten, I mean, actually, funnily, most of the comments in the comments section, at least at first, were favorable, and the people who had negative things to say sent them to us as emails. But yes, we've gotten some hosannas on both fronts, including emails.
Okay.
I mean, one of the main purposes may not be apparent to people, okay? It's like a scheduling issue. With the old redesign, whenever a new dialogue came in, it knocked the old one off of its perch into quasi-obscurity, which was that small little list of recent dialogues, which is still there, okay?
Right.
But it meant that you couldn't say, if two pairs of people wanted to do a dialogue on the same day, you couldn't really give them the green light.
Right.
And that was a total pain. And in fact, I hesitated to even schedule them on consecutive days. So that is one feature, is that now you can just say to our growing network of content producers, bring it on. B, the new thing allows us to build kinds of content that are unconventional, where just listing the topics kind of won't convey what's going on. There were a couple of these, like a high-level foreign policy dialogue between Anne-Marie Slaughter and Anatole Levin.
Right.
So there's a few functions it's filling. But yes, we've gotten, I would say, at least as much positive feedback as negative in the email and comments.
And I'm sure with your customary showmanship, like your P.D. Barnum-like flair, you'll dramatically publicize all these new things when they come down the pike. I could barely open a paper last week without reading about the new Blogging Heads 2.0.
Yeah.
He said with thick sarcasm.
I'd love to get around to that. But as it happens, I've got a few irons in the fire.
So I hear.
So I wouldn't expect a big publicity blitz from me, no.
Okay.
Our viewers have to spread the word, which leads me to my final point.
Yeah.
Use those dingalinks. If you see something on Blogging Heads TV that your friends might like, create the dingalink that'll take them right to that point and email them. That's my parting message to people. And if you can't figure out the dingalinks, send us an email, and we'll do our best to enlighten you. But they should work readily with Internet Explorer and with Firefox after you get the plug-in that we mention. If you click the question mark next to the words create dingalink on the control panel under the video box. They are an underused resource, sorry.
I don't think that'll do it. I'm getting an agent.
Hey, I'm all for it, Mickey. I welcome help on the marketing front. I was just trying to make it a very low-cost form of help from our viewers.
Well, there must be better dialogues than this, damn it. Anyway.
There must be?
Yeah.
Are you expressing...
My agent's going to get me a dialogue with Julia Roberts or somebody.
Speaking of which, Julia Sweeney has her show in New York is like moments from closing, and everybody should see it.
Oh, it's good? Okay.
She's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a distressingly positive note to end on.
Well, I didn't smile when I said it, if that's any consolation.
Okay. That's good. That's better.
Okay. We're onward and upward. Things look good. Traffic's been better since the redesign, and we're really happy.
Good.
Catch the fever.
Okay.
See ya.
See ya.